I'm Lisa Andersson. My last name is Swedish. My father's Swedish, and he came to America and met my mother, who was Tlingit from Huna. I'm going to start with my great-great-grandmother. She's from Mount Fairweather House. She is, that's also Snail House, called, the nickname is Snail House. She is related to Archie White, Jenny Edna White, and Elsie Moore. And those are the families those families include Catherine Mills, Lily Fawcett, and then Joe White and those families. And then her daughter is my great-grandmother, Lily Howard. And her father was Chukanady from Huna. So she was child of Chukanady. And my grandmother was next in line there, and she's a Santa Hib. Well, actually, Competi Rudolph. And her father was, Italian. So, and she, of course, you follow it's matrilineal. So all of these women are Mount Fairweather. And so is my mother, Pauline Andersson. Her Tlingit name is Stuatine, but she was a Rudolph from Juneau. And so that's my lineage. I have to mention my grandfather, my mother's father. He's Yan Yedi, that's Takukwan. And his father was Linady, which is Akwan. And he was from the Big Dipper house. So, and he was, my great-grandfather was a carver, so I will be mentioning a little bit about that too. So that's my connection to Una. My Tlingit name is Yakwan Kla, and that's from Catherine Mills. That's her name. I consider myself being an artist since I was like a year and a half. And that's because my father was painting the house, and he took a break, and all of a sudden my parents couldn't figure out what I was up to. And I was out on the back porch with the paint pail and a brush in my hand with a beautiful dress, fluffy dress, all painted up. So that was my start in my book. But I think my parents were very inspirational. They're both artists and musicians. And I think what I can remember when Mom first sat us four girls, my sisters and I, down to bead was when I was 13. And she wanted us to make these little beaded flowers to send to my grandmother. So my grandmother would have tables and sell her art. And so she wanted to, do something nice and have us also understand that process of giving and helping. And so we would make these little flowers that she then put on the baby booties. So I think that was probably the first time that we, did an actual beading project. And it's been, beading since then. And at the same time, my father understood I really like painting. And so he had me make some magnets. I painted totem poles on them. It was on one of my grandmother's beading designs, and I kind of did my own thing, and we sent them over to her so that she could make some extra money. And I was so proud of myself. And they did come back to me a few years ago, and I'm like, that was so cute. I would love to ask her if she eventually sold any of them, but painting has been inspired from my father. Yeah. We talk about inspiration, but at some point it's just a part of life. And so I think that for me, it wasn't like something like that inspired me. It's just that I was living it, My parents were always, that's part of the culture. Like my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, it was a part of life. You did your harvesting in the summers, and then in the winters you did the regalia. If we didn't have such a rich culture, we wouldn't have this need to make all this beautiful regalia, blankets, or robes and octopus bags and headbands. And so it's just part of our life. So I think just seeing those and being part of the process and learning as a child, there's not a moment of inspiration. It's all inspirational. I feel very fortunate to have been born Tlingit. It's such an awesome culture. I think that I'm going to go back to my parents again because they're so driven themselves and always wanting to learn new things. And so for my grandmother and other elders. I mean, I think that people see it in you that you have an interest. And I think that the elders are very good at doing that. They pick up on the ones, and they were taught to do that because they just didn't have everybody do the baskets, everybody do carving, everybody. They would understand and pick up the, that, oh, she has an interest, and they fed that. And I think that both my parents were able to do that and to understand it, and other elders also. Like I also do Tlingit botanicals. I do traditional medicines. And when the elders understood that I had that interest, they would all come out of the woodwork and tell me their little tricks, things like that. So it's just in the culture, they understand. I mean, I can see myself when there's people that have the talent in it, the know-how. It's just sometimes they don't realize it themselves. And I can't force them. but that's just, I think that if we're talking about people and how I was inspired, I have a lot of people I could talk about. Besides my parents, who I have to thank, I thank all the time for. I did. My mother passed away, and recently, and I know I thanked her all the time for being such an inspiration in my life, and so far. So also my father, my mother, my grandmother. I always remember seeing her sit and do her beading. She did that to make money for food. And a lot of the women back then did that. And so she would always in the night, she'd have her little light and she'd be sitting there and beading. And I just loved, inspiration. I loved all the colors of beads, And I just wanted to start, and it was like, that's an inspiration there. I think, as far as people that passed on that I really admire and that I felt that I want to do that is Annie Lawrence. I've seen her work, and she's a wonderful basket weaver. I think seeing her woven dolls that she made, and my auntie Sharon Hill, that's her grandmother, and I'm like, I would like to do that. So that's kind of an inspirational piece there that, that's something that I would love to do. I mean, I admire the old weavers. There's so many names I can mention that just are inspirational. Dolores Churchill. I have to say, I know this is, I have to mention Jeff as inspirational and someone that I would like to get to the same level as far as design work goes, because I'm so in love with the traditional, like rule-driven designs in art, Tlingit art. And it's not everybody that can do that because there are so many rules. I mean, you really have to be dedicated. And then to be able to create something that looks different within those rules is something that not everyone can do. And I really admire his dedication to that. I always am one to say that you have to give credit to the people that were part of your journey. And there has been a lot for me. Dolores Churchill taught me basket weaving, Cheryl Samuels, chilkat weaving. There's, I would go when my daughters were in school, elementary. Carol Williams would work there, and she would have beading classes for the kids. And I would go in early just to spend time with her. I mean, she's a wonderful artist. She has, she really has an eye for the colors, the design. I mean, she was taught by wonderful artists too. And so I have to mention Carol Williams as, one of my, mentors. I mean, there's so many. I hate to miss out, mentioning anybody, but there's also people that are just as important, that are the ones that supply the opportunity for me, that made it available, like classes. So you're talking corporations, you're talking, different grants that were available. I mean, we really have a lot of opportunity to learn. I received all my knowledge, and the knowledge that I received today have come from my ancestors. They collected that knowledge and they expressed themselves, and that's what we have today. When the rules and drum, or in designs, the beading, weaving, and at the same time, I feel a responsibility, but it's an inspiration to be part of that process, to take what they learned and what they did, and I hold it. And my inspiration is that I need to give it to the next generation. And so that to me is the most important thing as a Tlingit artist, is to have that ability to do that, to have come to the point where you were entrusted with this knowledge and to have it. I think that's my biggest inspiration. And then know that you're going to be part of it continuing on. I think can there be anything more, greater than that or more inspirational? Not really. How shagun. I am so little in the whole picture. On the long spectrum, I'm just one little dot, but that little dot, I can do something. Yeah. And who knows, in somebody's life, it's going to be important. Like the people that mentored me, or my parents, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, teaching my grandmother. They all had part of that. They were on that spectrum. And I think it's wonderful. I don't measure time. I don't put how long will this take? Or, it took this or it took that. Because when I get into that kind of thinking, then I lose it just takes away from the project. Sometimes I know that, okay, I'm going to try to make this in 3 hours, Well, then you're not paying attention to the detail, or you're not allowing yourself to, you start taking shortcuts and, I don't know, in your mind. I've been there. I've had jobs where you kind of have to, And so for me, if I get a little bit, if I get stuck, sometimes you get stuck on a project, I put it aside. And I was taught you put something over it so that you don't see it. Because then maybe it's something that has to mature. And so when you do go back to it, it might be a week or two, maybe a day, maybe a couple hours. When you do go back to it, you see it with new eyes. And so then you can, and we also believe that I was taught that you don't work on something if you have negative energy. You wait until you feel, you don't want to transfer that to your work. And it's really hard to take time when you figure out how long it took to do a project when you're trying to, not look at it for a while, not put negative energy into it. So I long time ago, I quit trying to figure out how long, but I can give you an idea. A drum, maybe a week. An octopus bag, maybe 3 weeks, depending on how often you're working on it. In a basket, maybe 3 months, Yeah. So, but as far as, I can't give you precise answers on that. I might start on a drum, and then I have to, like you say, put something over it because, okay, this isn't coming to me, so I put something over it, and then I'll start on another project, or I have another project I'm working on. So I kind of shift in between so that I can allow myself to do that, to not put the negative energy into it, which doesn't happen very often, but it does happen sometime when you wait, those days when you wake up and you're like stubbing your toe on this, you're dropping that, those are the days. Yeah. I'm not counting any time in any projects at that point. So, it's the paintbrush. that would be the one. I mean, there's a lot of tools that I could say. You know, I could say that, you know, when I harvest roots, I have the root harvest, or and then when you split the roots, you know, I have the wood to split it. Needle and thread, you know, but the paintbrush is probably that's it. That's it. My first occupation was a journeyman painter, and painting has always been my thing. My dad was right when he saw that I had an interest. So, you know, yes, and I would make my own paints and my own pigments, and I would chew the berries to get the, you know, whatever color I need. But if I didn't have that brush, I would be in big trouble. I'm working on a beaded project. It's the Raven's Nest House. It's an order, and it's going to be on a vest. And I'm kind of like Jeff too. I always like to put something, you know, personal in there, something that means something or reflects who it's going to. And in this piece, it has one of the parents is Celtic, so the nest has a Celtic design in it. And Jeff did the design. He does some of my beading designs, and he does. I do some more. Mine are more traditionally what you'd see the elders do. He's more form-like driven, and so it's always fun to do some of his designs too, because it does challenge me. So that's one that I'm doing. I'm making a basket. It's just a basket. I felt like I need to do something, you know. It's nice to have something that you can just sit and you don't have to, you know, have a lot of things. You just have the grass and the bark, and you can, you know, one of those things you can watch a TV and weave at the same time. And you don't have all the tools, just your hands and the basket. And there's one more that I'm working on. And what was that? I have so many things going on. It was a headband, also for someone. It's going to be the regalia. It's a dog salmon. So those are the ones that I'm working on. And like I say, I'm always working on a couple of things because I need to be able to rotate a little bit. But I do skin sewing, moccasins. I enjoy that. Button blankets, beading, of course. And I paint drums. I'm going to be working on some screens, which will be exciting because coming back to my ancestors, my great-grandfather was a carver. Him and his brother, James and Charles Rudolph from Juneau. He was a carver, and they did do screens and things. And so I want, you know, when I hear that one of my ancestors did something, I'm like, oh, I want to try that. I have to have it in my DNA, right? So we'll see how much DNA I got from him. But I love painting, and I did make, like this one, for instance. This is a drum that I made the drum, and it's Jeff's design. I made the mistake to tell Jeff that, you know, a little cocky, well, whatever you design, I can paint. Well, you know, I mean, I have a lot of years behind me painting, so I'm like, I was feeling pretty good. And you know what? He's been challenging that every time he does a design. So I do a variety of art forms, and I think I haven't stopped learning. I think there will be other things that I'm going to be trying. I will be trying to incorporate a little bit of my Scandinavian heritage by learning a basket weaving style that is called Tiger, and it has to do with birch roots, and so they'll be interesting. So try to incorporate a little bit of my father's heritage also. But yeah, those are what I'm doing right now. The drum, it's a bear design, like I said, like Jeff. And then I painted and made the drum.
Yeah,
and it's deer hide. And this is a octopus bag that I made with the beading, and I have to I love making octopus bags, and I think what I find so fascinating is that when they did get beads in, you're talking end of 1800s maybe. You had people come to this area that were from Europe, and they had floral pattern materials with them, or wore dresses and stuff. And I think a lot of the inspiration on some of these you can see in the cloth that they used. And so I'll go and look at old patterns, and then I'll see, oh yeah, look, that's exactly, how that beading design looked on that octopus bag, And so I'm always looking to get inspiration for octopus bags. I look at old, 1800 cloths, or, to try to look at the florals and stuff to see how they did that, because I know we that was some inspiration for us too. So, and in fact, it's not this one, it's one I'm working on. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that one. It's one I'm working on. And I have a Polish cup in the house. I have Polish coffee cups. And I used the design on that for an octopus bag that I'm working on. So, and it's just, that's how they did it. They used what they had around them, the different figures and stuff. And then these are a basket that I made. And of course it's, with this is birch bark. What am I saying? I'm thinking about birch bark. This is the cedar bark, and then false embroidery. So I just harvested a lot of the canary grass. So I'm a rich Tlingit woman because I got lots. It took 3 days to process it and stuff, but I'm really doing good in the grass right now. I was working on this. Dolores Churchill came to have a class, and so I was working on it, and I thought, I had come a ways, and I thought, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to finish it because I want her to be here when I was doing the ending. And it just happened to be that she was doing the Iceman's hat. If you remember that hat that they found, it was like, I think 500 years. It was by BC on a mountain ridge or something like that. Anyway, she had been commissioned to do a replica of it, and she was working on it when she was here. And together, she said, why don't you do the Iceman hat ending? Because it was an ending that had been forgotten. It was lost. And so she learned how to make it with this Iceman's hat. So I thought, that is wonderful. So this basket, it has the Iceman's hat ending on it. And it's just, there you go again. Here we're reaching back 500 years, It's awesome. There's no end to this culture. There's no end to what you can do and what you can learn. We're still learning. And I think Dolores has been wonderful in bringing a lot of things back, and she, another inspiration. But yeah, so that's the story about this one.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And this one I did, and actually this was also made in a class with Dolores Churchill, and it's let's see, it is spruce, and then you have the grass, and you have bear track, and you have strawberry design, and they all have different, there's a lot of designs that we use that we've inherited from our ancestors. And I challenged myself to make a dance ring, and that's this one. And I was totally surprised how much bark that you had to use in order to make it. And I think we were talking about it, the weavers, and when Dolores was here and I was making it, that probably is the first one that was made in a long time. And so it's just fun to be part of the process, like I say. It's in fact, I wouldn't have these if it wasn't that Jeff claimed them. So that's thanks to Jeff. I love to make regalia, so here's some headbands. This one. It's so awesome. Like, people might look at that and they okay, it's a raven, it's a seagull, but it's what's so beautiful with our art form is that this is Mount Fairweather, you know. It's Mount Fairweather, Kashai-hit. I didn't mention Kashai-hit. That's my house. That's Nan's head house. You wear this, anybody around here will know that you're from Huna and that you're from Mount Fairweather, Kashai-hit. That's how that is with the raven and the black-legged kittiwake. So there's so much that goes into these our art forms. And this one is I made for Jeff, and it has the giant octopus, the porpoise, and then I can't remember what his name is. Hakuch, the warrior. Yeah. So, and if he wears his headband, they know that he's from Nanahit, and that he's Chukanadi from Huna. We have so much to be proud of. I work with all kinds of materials, porcupine quills, abalone, different shells, halibut ear bones, and of course beads, beaded earrings. I started, like you say, with a lot of small things, and I know that through the years I've had tables and sold my wares to, like my grandmother, help out with the household costs, and in that I've done a lot of small, pieces. I mean, chilkat weaving. I paint earrings, paint on wood. Anything I can paint on, I paint. I guess I do so much that I don't really think about it. I don't think about, I'll try anything also. But yeah, I paint a lot on wood and do different designs. And that was inspired because when I was going to college, and I'd go to have a table, and I would beaded crest necklaces. I love making those. I use all my great auntie's designs, just to bring them back, and how can these be, what colors and so forth. But I also noticed that there were people that could afford and people that couldn't. And so I felt like, for me, it's not a matter of, it's not the sell for me. It never has been to sell, but I have to get something for my time. But it was more that we have something to show who we are. And so I do paint little necklaces with eagles and ravens and, for children. And so I felt like, for me, I was kind of stuck in that for a while, and a lot of it I don't do anymore. I still, will paint things because I feel like it's affordable and it's something that everybody can get. And so I think that's why I want to move on to the bigger things, but I'm stuck with the smaller because I know it serves a purpose. I really love making regalia because you see people, when you're out and about and they're dancing, or whether it's a drum that we've made, and and you see it and you're so proud, you're so proud that they're up there, they're showing who they are, and you've been part of that. I mean, I think that is the most wonderful part of it, is that you're part of somebody expressing who they are, and not only them, they're who they are from their ancestors. So you're respecting their ancestors by being part of that. I do. I make some button robes, and one that I have to mention that is really, really important to me is I made a porpoise button robe, and when my uncle Paul Rudolph, we had him represented at a payoff party, and I made it for my his wife, my auntie, Mary Rudolph. And because she took care of him, her life. They just a wonderful couple, and she was just there. I was just I loved my Uncle Paul. I mean, when you're little, you have this person in your life, and he was it when it came to, being that person in my life that I thought was just like, oh, you're just in love, as a child. It's like, oh, that's who I want to be. That's, this is a loving person and a strong person, and one that, you just felt like, safe with, and then here you have his wife, my auntie, that took such good care of him. I mean, what can you do? I mean, that not even that is enough, but it was to show my gratitude to her that she had taken good care of my uncle and that I loved her for it. And those are the pieces that, I mean, you can't put time on it, You want to do it with such great detail and love and, just do the best job you can with it. It's about where it's going and who's getting it, And, I didn't think about that when I made this button robe. But it's like being a porpoise and representing her Nana Hit. When she wears it, she's showing who she is, where she's from, and she's representing her ancestors. That shows a lot of about our existence. So, but yeah, that was a pretty important piece for me to make. So my mother taught me how to make moccasins, and her mother taught her to make moccasins. I know that Lily taught a son, and I know that Mary taught Lily. That's my lineage, matrilineal lineage. And so yes, the paintbrush is important to me, but actually moccasins, moccasins is something that is like consistent through my lineage, and they all made them in it. So, and that's a nice thing to, when I sit and make moccasins, I'm sitting there and that my great grandmother made moccasins. There's just, you have to be proud of that. You have to, you feel this connection with your past. And I don't know, it's so hard to, and we all can have that because we all come from that culture, and because it was a functional thing. I was thinking about that the other day, that, okay, when you're asked about, art as an artist, who are you an artist? What do you make? It really isn't an art form. It's our existence. All of this was functional. We use it to express our existence, who we are and where we're at, and to others, And so it's so hard to explain that everybody has the ability to do this. We all have it in our genes, whether we want to or not. It's like I said, it's like when I look at my great-grandparents' stuff, I want to do that. I want to be part of it. Well, it's not just because it was him. It's because it's in me. It's in all of us. So we just have to, express it. It's not an art form. It's a part of being in our culture. So moccasins are a nice thing for me to be able to make, being that it has, I'm the 5th generation moccasin maker, which makes my daughters 6th generation moccasin makers. My mother taught them, so and I'm real happy about that. And I'm having my first grandbaby, so I can teach them. It's like it continues on. It's something that you just have to embrace. The thing with moccasins too that I really like is through the times, there's been patterns made, and there's, frog, wolf, there's all these crest designs. And my grandmother got some from her aunties. So I have like Lily Fawcett's, I have May Moy's that got handed down. I have all these aunties and great aunties, moccasin patterns. And I know I'm not the only one. There are moccasin patterns in this community in almost every household, I bet, and so it's just, I don't know, it's so fun to take these patterns, and some of them we've lost what colors they use or the maker, what were they thinking. So now we have to kind of recreate it. It's kind of like when everything died, when we weren't allowed to use totem poles or regalia, we had to, it disappeared. And when they started coming back, like my great grandfather, they had to recreate it in a sense. And so I kind of feel like that. I'm recreating this. I have to figure out what colors, boy, I can just imagine how they felt back then. And yes, you know what? What came out of that was this, what they call a little bit distributive. They lost the form line and the rules, which tradition, we're learning that. We're relearning that, the rules. But then they were just trying to scramble. And I love that. I look at my great grandfather's and his brother's work, and it's like, that is the beauty in it. I'm not much for that style, but it had its function then, And so with the moccasins, I can be a little bit, creative with them, and I think that I'm looking at my great grandfather and thinking, yeah, he was creative. I can be creative too. That's my passion. That's my place in the world. I have a lot of other things I do, and are my interests, but I know that I am just a carrier of the knowledge, and I have to hand it on. It's not for me. It's not mine. I don't own it. And that's the beauty. And I would be doing my ancestors and my family a great disservice if I would keep it to myself and not share it, because I think that's kind of what they're hoping for, right? That's our hopes. Yes, and I do mentor when I can. I teach basket weaving. If you have an interest, I am there. I am looking. I look for people that I am that person that what they saw in me when I had an interest, the elders, they taught me. I am that elder, and I'm looking for those people. And if I see it, I do start, picking at them a little bit. And that's all I can do. And I've had classes, beading classes, octopus bag classes. To me, it's a part of the process. It's part of my responsibility. So I'm always looking for opportunities or people that are willing to learn, because it's a responsibility. It's not a heavy responsibility. It's a fun responsibility. It's like, where are you? I need people that are wanting to learn, because this has to survive. This has to exist. I mentioned Annie Lawrence. I really think that I'm impressed with her abilities, her abilities, and the dolls she made. That took a lot of skill to do what she did with those. And you have there's so many to mention. You have David Williams. He was big in bringing back things too. My parents, my mom, my grandmother, I've mentioned them a lot. My aunties. So we have this system where your aunties, teach you. Well, my aunties, my grandmother taught my aunties well, Tina Martin, Marianne Hill. They were taught by my grandmother, and they have, taught me too, just by existing and living together and, working on projects together. They're alive. So I have to say that my grandmother, she taught my mother. And so I think she was very instrumental in keeping that going in our family. When I think about a contemporary artist that I really admire, and it's not because he lives with me, that we live together, but it's just because I think that I like what he's doing, I like, you must have noticed by now that I'm a traditionalist. I like the traditional, I like the regalia, I like everything about our culture. I also like the tradition, like the form line designs. I like the fact that there's form line, that you have to follow the form line, that the rules within design are so rigid in a way, but within that rigidity, you can be contemporary, but you're still going by the rules, right? You can create something. And he strives for that. He's always learning. And I think that we can be alive, for, the rest of our life, we'll still be learning. There's so much that you can't arrive in this art form. And so he always surprises me, in trying to portray something differently or incorporate things that the old artists used to do, and looking and studying the old, the artists, the past, and understanding why they did things they did. I think that is the hard part of the art, is learning how to stay within the rules. And we had rules. They were, I think some artists have lost track of, that is part of our heritage in doing that. And to me, personally, I think the old style is more aesthetic and clean. It's pleasing to the eye. And maybe that's my genes. That's my great grandfather saying, Lisa, this is what it's supposed to be like. And so I would say Jeff, he really, I'm really impressed with how driven he is about his art form, how he wants to understand what it means and why it's been done that way, Yeah, I would say he would be, if I would choose somebody. And there are a lot of children or kids, upcoming kids, that are just doing a wonderful job. I think we're going to see their names out there. We just have to inspire them and, give them the tools they need. They're recreating at some point, I would say. When I was a child, it was still in that, we're not talking the beginning of 1900, but I think that there was still like a time period where they're trying to understand and go follow the old, but then recreate. I think I have actually thought about that. I am really happy that I am where I am in the evolution of the art, because we understand a lot more of why it is the way it is, the rules and everything like I was talking about. We have a lot more materials, we can be more creative. In some ways, we're not so stuck to the rules too, so we can kind of play a little bit with it, but then honor our heritage and present it in a way that we can. I think that as far as it changed too, like my grandmother, she did the art in order to feed her children or have food on the table, pay the rent, things like that. Well, we don't have to think about that now. The times are better. And so we're not stuck in creating something because it will, sell and put food on the table. Or, and also the culture has blossomed because from not being able to use our regalia to today, everybody's getting their regalia. Everybody is showing who they are. They headbands, you know. I mean, just being part of that time, you know. Can you imagine being back in the beginning of 1900 and you're not supposed to be doing anything of your art? Can you imagine what heartbreak? And so I have to say that I am right where I'm supposed to be on that spectrum, you know. I mean, I'm very fortunate. It's just everybody's taking pride in it. Things are being created, new things, contemporary as far as different, you know. It's just a really nice time to be. It has changed a lot. Passing on what I was given. That is my whole existence. I think that's so, I mean, I've embraced that because that is our culture. It's Hashigun. It's taking responsibility for what I need to do in my life in order to be part of that, you know. So it's not about me. It's definitely not about me. It's all about my ancestors and my descendants, our descendants. That's, and you know, a lot of times people will create things. I create things and I enjoy it. I like seeing them. I like to create. It gives me, I'm selfish, you know, I am selfish like everybody else. But really the main reason for doing it, which gives me huge pleasure, is the fact that it is something that is our right by birth, and that can carry on. And that's what I want to accomplish. I want to be part of that, and I am. I'm trying to be part of that. It's a nice way to exist, you know. It's not about me. It's so hard to explain Hashigun. It's so, because it's a word, but it's not about a word. It's about an existence, and just being a small part of that is okay, because it's not about the individual. It's about the collective whole and how we carry ourselves from that to the, you know, the next. So I'm just grateful for my mother and my fathers. I think they were inspirational, and were important to who I am today as far as an artist. And just always having that was important. Yeah. I think, and you know, my children, they inspire me. I think for any artist that does regalia, that's an inspiration, is to make things for your children, make sure that, you know, they have what they need to express themselves, or, you know, show who they are, you know, and be proud of that. I think that that would be just another, you know, thing that is important to me is, you know, family, clan.